Hi, and welcome to Captivate the Mic with Elaine Williams. I am delighted that you are here. I am always so inspired to see that people from all over the world are listening and watching to this podcast. Who knew? I wanted to make a podcast that would help people elevate their speaking, also elevate and share inspiring stories of entrepreneurs, and have some speaking tips and video tips. It would be entertaining as well as educational. So that is one reason why I am so excited. And I know I say that all the time, but I love having cool conversations with cool people. And this woman is very cool. She has been a hairdresser forever. Her mother was a hairdresser and her daughter is following in her footsteps. And she is so much more than that. She has had salons and she's creating a whole brand of beauty. And she is very vulnerable and shares her entrepreneurial journey with us. So I think you're going to really love Evelyn Kershaw. I met her through the Dames of North Dallas. And one of the things I want you to listen for is she tells a story in the beginning of the episode. And then we continue on our conversation. And then later on, I give her a few tips about how to make the story pop. And that is one thing I encourage you to do is practice your stories, tell your stories into your phone. And one of the things I talked with her about is how to set it up so that the beginning starts with a wow. We want to grab them right away. And so sometimes when you can just set up with a few more details or a few more things that contrast, it helps the stories really pop. Because we want our stories to pop so that people pull over. They're so intrigued they have to pull over to get out of traffic, or they're listening and then they're like, wait, I have to go write this down. That's what we want. We want people to be so captivated that they stop what they're doing, as long as it's being safe, and they're truly listening or taking notes or making sure they share this with other people. That's what we want. Stories that pop. And that can take a while to learn, and it doesn't have to. So anyway, without further ado, I think you're going to love this woman, Evelyn. Please, we would love for you to share this episode with people. And if you have not subscribed, please subscribe, rate, and review. It helps the show get pushed out to other people who don't know about it yet. So please share this with somebody who wants to work on their speaking or their storytelling or being funnier or having more confidence on camera, because I talk about all of that. So thanks again for watching. Thank you for sharing and subscribing. And I can't wait for you to hear this episode. Hi, everybody. This is Captivate the Mic with Elaine Williams, and I have a treat. This woman is so powerful and beautiful and lovely, and I know her from our Dames community. Please help me welcome Evelyn Kershaw. Evelyn!
Yay!
And the crowd goes wild.
I'm
Yay.
super excited to be here.
I'm so excited too. For those of you listening or watching, we have been trying to do this for like forever. And, it's just two very busy entrepreneurial women. So I have goosebumps. I'm so excited. You've always been so beautiful and kind, and you've been so generous with your products. I'm always like, ooh, Evelyn brought something. I can't wait to try it,
Well, good. I'm glad that it excites you and it fills you up in one way or another.
Yes. And I've always been friends with people who own salons. And I think that's such a unique and cool and challenging business niche, right? And, so we're going to, if you're just listening, Evelyn has gorgeous curly hair, and mine is just as curly when I wear it down. And in the summer times, I'm just like, it's going up to a messy bun. I cannot deal with it. But I wanted to tell her, so I was in New York City doing commercials and stand-up and running around auditioning. And I booked this commercial and I flew down to Wilmington, Delaware. And I'm excited and I'm nervous. And I get off the plane, and the producer, he was like this huge Italian guy. He walks up to me. He doesn't say nice to meet you. He goes, I'm worried about your hair, and you look too young. Like that was it. I was like, and thank God for my comedy chops because I said, "Oh, honey, you should tomorrow morning. I'm gonna look 20 years older in the morning, and don't worry about my hair." Like I made some funny comment, but I feel like, first of all, how rude, right? And we did the commercial, and my hair was fine, everybody. But it just makes me laugh because curly hair can be such a challenge, right? Growing up, I couldn't have the Farrah Fawcett wings. I have some horrible looking pictures. My stepmother was always trying to get me to practically shave my head. She hated the unruliness of my curls. Do you have a curly hair story you could share with us, Evelyn?
I don't know that I have a specific story, but it definitely brought some things to mind. One, I find it very fascinating how curly hair tends to make you a little more approachable. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was on a mother-in-law son-in-law date with my son-in-law one time, and we were walking through this place, and I don't know how many people stopped me to take their picture, like a group picture.
Right.
And he's like, he starts to get kind of a little annoyed because we're like, we have our little thing we're doing. And I'm like, it's the curly hair. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, there's just something about when I wear my hair curly, people just think you're just kind of nice and you're just a little more approachable and will always stop me to ask to take their picture or whatever. Straight hair gives a whole different,
different vibe.
Vibe. It's so interesting. So I find it interesting that he felt even, comfortable enough to say something to you about your curly hair.
And it's so true. Like I had a spin teacher who had crazy curls, and she would blow out her hair because she said in the business world, people respected her more. She was in a male dominated field. And I know my sister blows her hair out, and I used to do it a lot. But as I've gotten older, I don't want to take the time. It's fun to do every once in a while. Yeah, it's so interesting. So Evelyn, I know that you own a hair salon and that you're launching some products. Can you tell us about your entrepreneurial journey? How did you end up being a salon owner?
Well, it's just a very, humble kind of organic process, really. My mother was a hairdresser. So I grew up in a salon and remember being picked up from school, and actually sometimes the receptionist would pick me up from school and sitting in the break room doing my homework while mom was working on her clients. So definitely a fond, memory of my childhood. And although when I got into high school, I thought I wanted to be a marine biologist. So very different direction I took, obviously. I think in hindsight, I just wanted to play with dolphins. It had nothing to do with marine life, really.
I mean, who doesn't want to play with
SeaWorld.
Right.
I like the entertaining part of it, right? Very cool. But I also loved fashion. I loved clothes. Went to the mall. There was a store in the mall that I don't know if you remember layaway back in the day, right? So the idea of layaway for, a kid in high school that wants really nice clothes. So I took advantage of that and put, I don't know, $1,500 worth of clothes on layaway at a store at the mall. My mom was furious. So she made me come work for her so that I could pay for the clothes. And that was all she wrote. I was making more money in one day a week on a Saturday assisting her and the salon owner, helping them shampoo and sweep and all the things, and I would get tips from the clients and they would pay me for helping them. And so, yeah, I made more money than my friends did working all week at McDonald's or wherever it is they wanted to work. And I liked that.
Yeah,
and
you were like, sign me up. That sounds fun to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where it started. And then the high schools offered a vocational program, where you could get your license while you were in high school. Love that idea because I was not a great student, did not like being in school. Right. And so to be able to spend 3 hours of the day doing what I want to do was very attractive. So I graduated from high school with my diploma and my license. So I started doing hair, well, if you don't include my mom, with, let's just say professionally with a license in 88. Okay. So I've been in the industry a long time and went to work for a local chain started cutting hair for $8 a haircut. I got a lot of experience really quick. We were a walk-in type place, and you walked in here and you were doing a haircut every 15, 20 minutes.
Wow.
So yeah, you do a lot of like trial by fire kind of thing. Um,
Have you ever done like a horrible haircut and you were like, oh no?
oh yeah. In
Yeah.
fact, of course, early in your career when you're first starting, of course it's going to happen, right? It's kind of
Right.
expected. But this was a little bit later. I mean, I was by then married and had some kids, and we were actually at McDonald's right by the salon, and I was looking at the person in front of me, and it's a texture hair that's very straight, very wiry. And I looked at my husband at the time and I said, "Look at his hair. His haircut's not very good." And he's like, "Yeah, it's not very good." I'm like, "I think I did that."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was that. Yeah, that's terrible. But you got to be able to look at that. I thank God, that I, for some reason, had that in me, that I could look at my work and
And be objective.
judge it and not not be upset, judge myself on it, right? And go, oh, I want that to look better.
Right.
I did a lot and saw in my mom's salon a lot of hairdressers kind of winging it. You kind of fake it till you make it for a long
Right.
time. And I did that probably the first 10 years of my career. Gratefully, I started managing pretty quickly.
Okay.
I was 19 years old and started managing the chain that I worked for, one of their salons. And I had a girl come in to teach us product. And there was something about her that was so dynamic, and I just loved everything she had to say. I learned so much, and it just did something to me. And I'm like, I want that. I want to be able to teach people like that. I want to be able to train like that. Like, she's answered so many questions I didn't even know I had,
Right.
the
Right.
questions for. And so that kind of started this like whole idea of like, how can I be better? How can I learn from people so that I'm not guessing on how to do hair? And went to work for Paul Mitchell as an associate for them in the 90s and got a lot of training with them, which was really great. And was managing the salons, struggling, not making enough money. And at one point, my mom looked at me. She always was an independent contractor. She never wanted to own a salon. But she just looked at me one day and she handed me some money and she's like, "Go be on your own. You're doing a lot." She saw something in me and she's like, go do it yourself. And back then it's when all the multi-suites were first opening up and you could rent your own space. And so I took the leap of faith, with her encouragement and said, okay, I'm going to do it. And that first 2 weeks was pretty good. And then for 6 weeks, I didn't see a whole lot of people. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I get every client. Yeah. Every client that's going to follow me, right? At that point. And so, from there, I just kind of built and built and built. I continued to just grow and learn. I was exposed to, through Paul Mitchell, exposed to personal development and the importance of that. And I just took it and ran with it, and it just grew. It grew my business. I went from one little suite to 2 to 3 to eventually even hiring my own esthetician. And so I was in this multi-suite salon. I was like a salon within a salon, and it just didn't make sense anymore. It's like, I need to open my own storefront.
Right.
And I started hiring assistants and then found this love for hiring them. Plano went through a time that there was a lot of IT, EDS, a lot of IT stuff going on, and they had a lot of layoffs. We went through some hard economic times, and there were some of my clients that both husband and wife were out of job.
Oh, wow.
And so at that, I was, thank God, growing, and then I had hired an assistant. And so I just kind of came up with this thought, hey, I need to train her to be able to do hair. I will, if you're okay with her doing it for you, I'll even do it for free a few times to train her. And then and they totally agreed. They were, because they had to keep their hair looking good to be able to get a new job, right? Interviews and things like that. So it was a beautiful relationship. And then like people at the church I was a part of, they started sending people to me. So it got to where like they kind of had to be referred. So that, because we were small and we couldn't do all haircuts for free, but we were, they would send people that were really in need. We kind of filtered it through that. And then from there, it just grew into eventually an apprentice program that had lower pricing. And then people could come. I mean, it was really pretty dirt cheap for people, and they could take advantage of that. And we could train our staff on them. From there, it developed into a whole level system that we have at the salon, where depending on how much experience the stylist has, depends on how much you pay for the service, right?
Okay.
So, yeah.
I mean, love it.
Natural growth.
I love it that it was just kind of the next right thing. Yes. I dated a hairdresser in the 90s, and I got to do hair shows for Paul Mitchell. And the number 2 lady, she was like this short blonde lady. She would do like Tai Chi before she was going on the stage. And one time they had my hair in this huge turban. Like, they would make it crazy. Because I do have a lot of hair, like if it, anyway, it was just fun. I would get free product. So I loved it. I did it in Dallas and Austin.
Fun. How fun is that? What are the chances that I saw you?
I know.
We would help assist at those.
We were at the same hair show.
It sounds like it was Jean Bra that was doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was so cool. She was so cool. I love it, Evelyn. And how did you learn how to manage people? Like, that to me is so hard.
Well, again, I do everything the hard way. Trial and error.
Me too, sister. Yeah. Let's just do it. Let's just do it. We'll figure out as we do it, which...
Exactly. And, it's you have to really love people, being an entrepreneur. That's what it's really ultimately all about is it's not so much about the money. It's about loving people, working with people, building relationships. That to me, relationship has the highest return on investment. Right. And, but the tough part is finding the right people and the people that align with how you think and, see the bigger picture. And, so yeah, that's the struggle. That's the hardest part, at least when you have a business that relies on mostly people for it to keep going. You've got to learn how to love them where they are and find gentle ways to train them up. And, there was a time I played too much the role of mom,
right.
And then, tried to back away from that and got to a point where I even kind of resented because nobody appreciated or felt like nobody was appreciating the things that were being done. And, then I got to a point where I kind of resented that I had to be their moms, because you kind of hear, I start learning and trying to figure out, okay, where am I going wrong in this? This shouldn't be this hard, all those things you can tell yourself. And you'd hear corporations, they hire people already ready, they don't do a whole lot of training and they want, if you're going to get paid this amount of money, you should already know what you're doing, so to speak. So I kind of went through this phase of like, okay, maybe I need to think a little more that way, like quit hiring people right out of school or quit, or have a combination of both. It's where it kind of ended up for a minute. And then you come to find out like, okay, I have to get over that.
Right.
I have to get over that thinking. It can't be that way either, because really, truly what I loved and what put a smile on my face when I was doing it, what made all the headache, since I've been doing this, we opened my own retail store in 2004 is when we opened my storefront. And to make it all worth it, all, paying the bills and, wondering how you're going to make payroll and, all the things that we can go through, especially when you first open, what made it all worth it was seeing the aha moments these girls had.
Right.
When we were teaching and training and knowing that they didn't have to do all the trial and error I had to do in the beginning, that I was helping them advance in their career quicker than I was doing it. And I just love that. And I wish that for myself. I wish someone had done that for me. It was the few people that did, or the places I positioned myself so I could get it. I felt like I had to like almost steal it, take it from people, so that I could learn. And it wasn't my nature. I wanted to be able to offer it to people. And in those moments, that's what makes it worth it for me, is mentoring those girls and seeing those aha moments. And part of that requires, kind of life coaching. I
Mhm.
ended up getting a life coaching certification over COVID with everything going on for myself. Ended up getting a spiritual direction certification. And yeah, I just had to own that was my purpose, right? Is to be a light in some really dark times, with
Mhm.
for finances is a hard thing for people,
Yes.
and there's some of it that's out of our control. And so together is how we all win.
Right.
So,
Oh, what a
yeah.
beautiful lesson. Did you have to close your salon or do very limited during COVID?
We closed for 6 weeks. We're in Collin County. So Collin County did a 6 week kind of shutdown of all business. Um, yeah, that was a very interesting time. You learn a lot about yourself and about others.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah,
It was so hard. Like I have a multifamily house in New Jersey and I wasn't sure what was going to happen with my tenants, right? I was terrified. So I was taking any extra work in addition to my coaching because I had this huge mortgage payment. And so I was caregiving for this woman. We had become unlikely friends, but she was 87. And so, her daughter was like, you can't go to the gym. You cannot go to yoga. Like, you have to, we don't want you bringing anything home to her. And I was like, you're absolutely right. But for me, not being able to go to the gym or yoga was so hard. Like, I worked out on my own, but I just love people and the yoga studio. So that was a really tough thing to endure. And I did it, and she made it. She unfortunately passed away from some other things, but it wasn't from me bringing COVID to her. But yeah, that was such a hard time, but also inspiring too. It's seeing people helping each other out. And there's a lot of stuff in the online world. Lots of coaches were donating time and programs. And so I lived on Zoom because that was like my connection. So
yeah, yeah. So much positive came from it.
yeah,
I mean, not recognize the tragedies that came from it, because they're
right.
different ones. But I know in my world, my life, it gave me a moment of reflection. I was really pissed for the first couple weeks. I was mad. I'm like, I'm constantly struggling to keep this business afloat, and just I asked a lot of questions. Why? That's what I ended up hiring my own spiritual director rather than a coach. I had been in like a mastermind group where we got a lot of coaching, but now it was deeper than just what was happening in this world, right? And so yeah, it was a tough pill to swallow, and just before COVID happened, I had a walkout on a bunch of stylists. Everything kind of blew up in my face.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, happens to a lot of salon owners. It's a nightmare.
What does that
You put
mean? What does that mean, a walkout?
a walkout. Well, you kind of have one person. I don't know if you've ever met some people who they can't just leave. They kind of have to like destroy everything on the way out so they can't come back, or I don't know. There's a part of me that feels like they have to
Burn it
feel
down.
like, well, it's like if it doesn't go well for them once they're gone, it's not their fault. It's my fault, right? Like,
Right.
it's how it felt. I'm not saying that's how it is, but it's kind of how it feels. I mean, to the point where I was actually asked to be part of a book of a bunch of authors, and every author got to write a chapter in the book. And so I wrote one of the chapters, and I actually wrote it. It was around the time this had all happened, and I wrote it to really kind of work out everything that was happening. If you'd have told me 15 years ago I'd be a published author someday, I would have thought, I'm not a writer. I don't do those things. But I think what freed me, for one, is I was in this place of surrender that whatever God threw my way, I was just going to try it,
Okay.
quit resisting things. And so I was asked to do this. I'm like, okay,
Okay.
if this is what I'm supposed to do, I'll do. And so I thought, what am I going to write on? And I had read a book by David Brooks, Second Mountain. I think it was in that book. Oh, I hope I'm not mistaken, but that's what's coming to mind. Um, that said that authors were basically people just writing out their stuff on paper, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go with that. I'm just going to write what I'm going through right now, And it's funny, it took me probably a year before I ever read my own chapter out of the book once it was published.
It's hard to do that, yeah.
Yeah. And then when I read it, I was like, oh, I see what you were doing. You were revealing my pride. And I would have never thought I was a prideful person. I thought, to me, pride was being egotistical and you can't be humble and you only see things, right? And I didn't think I was any of those things. But that goes so much deeper than you realize. Like, so I don't even know if the chapter means anything to anybody else who reads it, but I know what it means to me, right? It's like pride, that's something we have to really understand on a deep level. And when you're in business, you've got to let that go.
Right.
You have to let that go. If you are not evolving and changing and recognizing the things where you're holding on to that you should not be holding on to, and so, yeah, that walkout was a huge lesson. I mean, typically any problems we're going through as entrepreneurs are usually a lesson for the leadership, right?
I know.
Right?
I'm like, can we slow down? Exactly. Do the lessons have to have so many zeros behind them? No,
yes.
But a part of me is like, Evelyn, I bet because I don't know, for me, I've had successful businesses. I've been a performer. I've gotten to tour nationally and I'm award winning. I've had some cool stuff happen. And I never feel like I've ever been on top of the mountain. I always feel like I'm still climbing. Or like, oh, that's the summit. No, it's a false summit, Elaine. And so for me, when other entrepreneurs are vulnerable and they are talking about like the bad times, I so relate to that because, I've had tenants go rogue on me. I had tenants try to get all the other tenants to band together against me. And luckily, there was always just like one instigator. But I had to learn painfully, like I cannot be friends with my tenants. And some people you could bend over backwards. You can fix every single thing for them and they will still just keep demanding more and they will never be happy. And that was hard. I'm like, but don't you love me? Like, I'm the landlord. I fix everything. But, I've really learned some painful lessons. And that there are some people who are entitled or whatever. And unfortunately, there's alcoholic people. I had this couple, when they first moved in, I thought, oh, they must have had a party. Because there were like 3 huge, recycling bins of cans and bottles of liquor and beer and stuff. And then the next week I was like, oh, they had another party. And then I realized, no. That's how much they drink every week. I mean, it was stunning. So obviously there's some issues later on the line with that one. But, I know there were important lessons of me separating, like I'm doing my job as a landlord and I'm not a mother. I'm not a resident assistant. I'm not the camp counselor, because I had to really, learn those lessons. They were painful, but, they're seared into my soul. Sounds like that walkout would be too. And
yeah. And I've had a little taste of what you're talking about as well. Because when I first opened the business, I thought, you'd see the struggles of commission salons where, the salon owners will train the stylists or whatever. They're there for a year or two. Stylists don't really recognize how much time, money, and effort they cost us those first couple years, right? And they just leave. They go rent a station. They go whatever, and it's so frustrating. So in my mind, I thought, okay, I can solve that problem. I'm going to open up a hybrid salon. So I had part of it that was commission, part of it that was tenant.
Right.
Renting from me. And so, what I didn't realize is that I was going to train them up so quickly that they would want to rent so quickly that I never got return on my investment.
You cannibalize your own stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what they were paying me in rent didn't cover what the salon's expenses were. I wasn't quite big enough. There's that problem between being, you want to kind of start small so you're not taking on too much, but then you can't start so small that you don't have any room, it just doesn't pay for itself. Anyway, so yeah, that was a hard lesson to learn too. And so eventually I just said, you know what? Oh, and I also had a spa area. So essentially I was trying to open 4 businesses, and I didn't recognize I was trying to open 4 businesses at the same time, right?
Wow. I thought I was a high achiever.
Well, don't be impressed, because it was just ignorance on my part. I had the retail area,
Right.
It was all under one roof, so it seemed like one business,
Right.
right?
It was actually,
But you've got the retail area. I had the commission area, which essentially had it's had an apprenticeship program. Within that, there was a lot that had to be built, a lot of systems that had to be built there. Then I had the tenants, so now I'm a landlord to them. And then I had the spa area, which the spa world is a completely different world. The way they want to work. I want them to be like hairdressers, just be there. So when clients are needing you, you're available, and they just want you to call them when you have somebody for them. Right.
Right.
And so eventually I thought, you know what? I got to know what I love, and I got to stick with what I know best.
Stick in your lane. Yep.
Yep. And so it was like, I know hair. That is where I really thrive. I know hair. That's what I'm teaching these girls. I know hair, and I love to mentor, teach, and, raise these girls up for their girls and guys, raise them up for their career, not just a job, to actually build a career.
I love that.
So, yeah.
That's
a
so
lot
beautiful.
of hard lessons to learn.
Woo! I love it. It's so great. So many great things. Thank you so much, Evelyn. And now I know that you're also bringing a product to market.
Yes.
Is that scary? Yeah. Exciting?
It's exciting. Yeah, I haven't felt scared at all. It's very exciting. I guess if I do feel any kind of way, a little anxiety or fear from it, it's just, okay, how do we, juggle all of it?
Right.
But I'm in this place that's so beautiful that I have lots of connections. We were talking about relationships earlier. I'm really starting to get that return on investments from relationships, just being kind to people,
Yeah.
So I'm partnering up with a girlfriend of mine, which is super exciting. If it's one of those things too, if you'd have told me years ago I'd have a partner, I'd thought you were crazy.
You'd be like, no
way.
You
see what happens. Yeah, you see what happens with partnerships, right? So,
all the time.
Again, I think we've checked all the great boxes. For one, we've known each other for 30 years, friends, and she's been my client. We've seen our kids grow up together. Our values really align, and I think that's huge, and they're very hard workers. They're in the farming industry. Nobody works harder than our farmers.
Oh, man.
And man, that's a whole podcast in itself, right? Like talking about what they do, and they're not appreciated. I mean, they feed us.
Yes.
They feed us.
Yeah.
And so, so it's I feel very honored and privileged to get to partner with them, and hopefully give back to our farming communities, especially here in Texas. And then, so we just thought it just kind of made sense, We're both girly. We both raised a lot of sons. We each have one daughter. She likes the idea of getting to do something a little girly. And I love the idea of being able to participate in that, and bringing my side of it, 36 years of doing this, and with their 40 years of being in the farming industry. And so we're combining that and hopefully designing a really cool cosmetic line. We're starting with a curly haired line.
Okay.
For sure. Woo! Yes, we're starting with the curly haired line. There's a lot of great products out there, but they're still not great enough for me, especially my type of curly hair.
What is your type of curly hair?
Well, I say my type, it's just, so I have a lot of hair, but it's a fine texture hair. It's really curly. So I need something kind of weighty, but I still like body. There's
Right.
I have all these things that I want, and I find like there's quite a bit of people out there that are like that. That's either, some of the products geared to too curly, that are so weighty that you can't get the body. And
Right.
then other types that are so lightweight to help create curl that they don't do enough.
Right.
So we need that in between. So that's what I'm hoping to produce for us, is that kind of in between, and something that will probably cater to a lot of people, I think. And then we're doing some men's hair and skincare.
Okay.
That we're reaching into. We're having fun with that. Probably be more of a little bit of a tallow line. We'll have a little tallow in that because they're also ranchers. So we're hoping to be able to source most of it from their farm and ranch. And then we're doing women's skincare, doing some exciting things with some peptides. So I'm excited about that. And then we're also going to do like a glamour line, hair, makeup, all the things. Our daughters are going to kind of head that part of it up. I think that'll be fun. It's going to be a fun legacy thing for all of us, Lauren, my daughter, is already part of the salon. She's been a hairdresser there for 12 years.
So it's a third generation now.
Yes, that's so cool. Yes. I feel so blessed, honestly, because to be able to work with your kids and my partner, Debbie, and her kids, they all work together. It just seems to be, it's going to be a really cool thing. I think I'm really excited about what we're doing and what I'm hoping to do, because let's face it, there's a lot of good product companies out there, a lot of good ones. Right. And so we're going into a very saturated market, but I think, I don't know, I feel like there is a need for some clarity, like, okay, what do I pick? I'm in the industry. I kind of know what I'm doing. And I am going through TikTok, going through Instagram, constantly being sold. And I get to the point where I'm like paralyzed. I don't even know what to buy.
Right.
And so I'm hoping that we can kind of be that, that voice of reason, or that voice, that trusted voice where people can go, well, let's go see what they have to say about this.
Right.
We're out there investigating, helping people do the research, seeing what really works, what doesn't work, and telling truth,
Well, and
like
also, this is what I do for some of my video clients, is like, when you can tell the story of your product, that is a unique differentiator. And, the fact that you've been friends with this farmer lady for 40 years and that you're going to be sourcing stuff straight from her farm. So that's unique and cool. And then what you talked about, like the body, but not too light, I could relate to that, because
yes,
I felt really super weighted down, and I like it that I didn't have any frizz, but then I put other stuff in, I still got the frizz, but it was lighter. So I feel like, maybe this is going to be a total sweet spot, so I'm excited to learn more about that. And Evelyn, I've been thinking about, like, what could I offer you? So, you are great at speaking and great at telling your stories. And I was just thinking if I could give you a couple of little tips about the bad haircut at McDonald's guy.
Yes, please.
When we're telling a story, we want people to be there with us, right? We want to help paint pictures for them. So if you wanted to use this story again, which I hope that you will, you could talk about, like, the smells. You were in line and you were dying. You couldn't wait to get the French fries. That smell. You were so hungry. And you kept thinking about, I can't wait. What am I going to order? And then you're in line with your husband, and then you look up and you're like, oh my gosh. And then maybe you could describe exactly how it looked. Like you said, what, super straight and wiry. And maybe if you could describe, like, was it like cross things? Was it fraying? Like, I just want a little bit more image of this guy who has, like, straight, wiry hair. But I want to paint the picture.
Kind of like, how bad was it?
Right.
Like,
and then,
yeah.
And so I think, and it, to help with the drama of it is like, you're like, I'm with my husband, we're about to have a yummy, decadent meal or whatever. And then all of a sudden you're like, ah! It breaks your good mood. And then you're like, oh my God, what a horrible haircut. And then your husband's like, yeah. And then you're like, I did that. Like, so to me, that would be even more of a reveal. Does that make sense? If you added a little bit, anytime you can add taste, touch, smell, color when you're telling a story, like she was walking on the damp, freshly mowed grass, that smell. Or when you can tell like it's gonna rain and the air is heavy, but it hasn't started yet. Like some of those times when you're, it really helps the listener or the audience like be there with you in the line. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I love that. This is the beginning of all this for me. We're taking things to the next level, scaling, we're franchising the salon. So this is going to be way more. I'm going to be doing a lot more of these kind of things. And so, yeah, it's again, I'm so into business and personal development that anywhere I can be better. And so what I'm hearing is, appeal more to the senses when I'm telling my stories. So let me ask you this. So then when I'm trying to do this, right, it's not in my nature,
Right.
I speak all day long, right? Like I speak
Right.
to people, like I come into this situation that I've never been into before. And I'm like, it's like, we're just, girlfriends chatting or like you're sitting in my chair at the salon. How do we talk, right? I mean, even so I'm single today. And so I even do that if I go on a dating app and go on a date. I start getting a little weird, nervous. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to pretend I'm meeting a new client.
Right.
I turn on that side of me. So it doesn't come natural for me. So how do I learn to do that and not feel like I'm being scripted? Because then I get a really kind of certain feeling and way when I feel like I'm being like scripted.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That's such a good question. And, I always tell people you don't get sick of your story. And if you can keep practicing telling it, and it can come out slightly different times every time, I don't want you to feel like it has to be scripted. I am more interested in, can you think about the feelings? And, first this happened and then this happened, right? Or, so I will say sometimes, my name's Elaine. I had 3 addictions. I'm an assault survivor, domestic violence survivor, you name it. It happened to me, except fentanyl, thank God. Anyway, so today I want to talk about, so that's like, I phoned it in. Because I've said that story a gazillion times in 44 states and 6 countries. But it's not fair to you or the listener if I tell a story like that, right? If I just go,
right.
Oh, blah, blah. So let me try to do it. And, so part of my story, Evelyn, that you might not know of is I grew up highly dysfunctional. I had eating disorders, drug, alcohol. I was assaulted many times as a preteen, teenager, and then in my early 20s, and then went on to have domestic violence as well. And I never thought I would be talking about it or using my story for good, but that is part of the evolution that is my life. And so I always pray if I can save one person from addiction or depression or cutting or suicide, then my life was worth it. So, that's a different version. And I'm going to say that probably slightly different the next time I do that. And so there's always, I love bullet points. So I don't like whole scripts because it just sounds weird and awkward. I just made a bunch of content when I was waiting for us to do this. And I'll think about what I want to say, and then I'll turn the recorder on, and sometimes I'll do 2 or 3 takes. And then every once in a while I'm like, today was not the day, right? But the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And so I'm going to invite you and challenge you that when you have clients in your chair who really know, like, and trust you, maybe you can practice a story on them. How do we get better at things? We practice. I just shot content with one of my VIPs, Tracy Steelman, and I was blown away. Like, she was like, do you like this? Do you like this? So anyway, she was just so comfortable and present and authentic in ways that 6 months ago she was not. because we've made a lot of videos. So she's gotten used to being on camera. She's gotten used to hearing her voice. She's gotten used to thinking, okay, what do I want to say? What's this point? And knowing like, you know what, that was off. Let me try it again. And so there's something so powerful in doing it. And like, you know, you should start you get to start thinking about what stories you want to tell that make people want to work with you to have their own franchise, right? And, you know, part of it is you can say, I've spared you. I've done all the heavy lifting. I've made every mistake. I have done this, and this. So I'm going to help you not do that, and that, right? And so, you know, and stories don't have to be super inspiring or powerful every time, but when they're told authentically in the moment, they're often very inspiring, right?
Yeah.
Because you're being truthful in the moment. Like that's how comedy was for me. Like I was trying to be funny, wasn't funny, not funny. And then when I just started talking about my dysfunctional family and like the frustrating craziness of it, and I was just being truthful in the moment, that was funny. And so the more you can speak from your authentic truth about, I want to share my mistakes and foibles with you so that you can make your own more creative ones or whatever. Does that make sense? Does that help?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Absolutely. I really appreciate the feedback. I need that.
Here's one more tip for everybody listening and for Evelyn's people too. Practice speaking into your phone. Let's say you have a date, but you're early. Sit in your car, turn on your video, and tell a story to your phone. And if you're in a negative space, do not watch it. Don't watch it until you're in a really good space, because we're our own worst enemies. But that's a great way to practice getting used to this is how I sound. This is how I look. Okay, this is really close. Oh, maybe the angle could be a little up. Oh, I look better that way, right? So that's a great way to practice your stories too. So Evelyn, this is so fun. I could talk forever, but I know we're all busy. Is there one super tip you want to leave our audience with today? Anything. It can be hair, salon, entrepreneurial, anything.
Well, let's speak to the entrepreneurs, right? I think that's why we're all here. Work on yourself as much as you do on your business. That's where it all is. I mean, you are a reflection of your business, and your business is a reflection of you, I think is better said. But yeah, so whoever you're becoming is what your business is becoming.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Well, thank you, Evelyn Kershaw. It was such a pleasure to have you, and I will have all of her links and bio and stuff in the podcast show notes. Thank you so much for joining Captivate the Mic. I would love to hear from you and tell me what else you want me to interview people on. Tell me what you want to hear when it comes to speaking and video and being more visible. Thank you so much for being a part of this community, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.